Hello everyone. In this lecture, we will cover two topics from jurisprudence: legal status of unborn person and legal status of dead man. So these are coming under our chapter in jurisprudence, person. Okay, person. So let us first discuss about what is the legal status of unborn person. So a child in mother's womb is by legal fiction, or we can say by legal imagination, regarded as already born. Now, if that particular child is born alive, that particular child will have a legal status. Though, as we know, law normally takes cognizance of whom? Law normally takes cognizance of living human beings. Yet the law makes an exception in this regard. In case of an infant in ventre sa mère, we call it en ventre sa mère, ENVENTRESAMERE, which means in the mother's womb, en ventre sa mère. Okay. So under English law, a child in the womb of the mother or en ventre sa mère is treated as in existence, and property can be vested in its name, that is in the name of the unborn person or the unborn child. Okay. And in the French civil code also, it permits the transfer of property in favor of an unborn person. But when it comes to Mohammedan law or Muslim law, a gift to a person not in existence, a gift to a person not in existence is always treated to be void. Now, a child in the womb of the mother is considered to be a person both under the law of crimes and also under the law of torts. Okay. Now, you may ask this question that what is the Indian position in this regard? Okay, as far as legal status of unborn person is concerned. Now, we are having section 13 of the Transfer of Property Act. Section 13 of the Indian Transfer of Property Act 1882. Okay. So, section 13, it says that property can be transferred for the benefit of an unborn person by way of trust. Okay. So under section 13 of the Indian Transfer of Property Act of 1882, property can be transferred for the benefit of the unborn person, for the benefit of the unborn person by way of trust, by way of trust. So let us little bit discuss about section 13. Section 13 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. So there are certain points which must be kept in mind when one wants to transfer the interest in the property, whether be it movable property or immovable property, unto the unborn person. Now section 13, it is talking about section 13 of the Indian Transfer of Property Act 1882 is talking about some substantial points. The first one is no property can be conferred. No property can be conferred on an unborn child directly. Okay. The second point, if at all one wants to create an interest in favor of and for the benefit of the unborn person, then law requires the transferor to transfer his benefit unto another person who is in existence on the date of transfer. I am repeating this point again, the second point. If at all one wants to create an interest in favor of and for the benefit of the unborn person, then law requires the transferor to transfer his benefit unto another person who is in existence on the date of transfer. The third point is the transfer must also provide directing the transferee. The transfer must also provide directing the transferee to hold the property not for him but for the benefit of the unborn. But for the benefit of the unborn person. Point number 4. Moreover, it must further provide for the transfer of the whole of the interest of the transferor through transferee unto the unborn. Moreover, it must further provide for the transfer of the whole of the interest of the transferor through whom? Through transferee unto the unborn. Okay. So these are some of the substantial points when it comes to section 13 of this Indian Transfer of Property Act 1882. Now let us discuss about Indian Succession Act of 1925. Now section 114 of the Indian Succession Act of 1925, it provides for the creation of prior interest before the unborn person may be made the owner of property, whether be it corporeal property or incorporeal property. But no property will be deemed to be vested in the unborn person unless and until he is born alive. Unless and until he is born alive. Then in Hindu law also, a child in the womb of the mother is deemed to be in existence for certain purposes. Like under Mitakshara law, such a child has interest in co-personary property. Now you may ask this question: what do we mean by a co-personary property? So it refers to equal inheritance that was restricted only to male members of the Hindu undivided family or Hindu joint family. So it is we can say a narrow body of persons within a joint family. Co-personers jointly inherit property and they have this unity of possession, we can say. So under Mitakshara law, such a child has interest in co-personary property. Okay. Then comes Indian Penal Code, section 315 we are having, and under this section, the infliction of this prenatal injury on a child which is capable of being born alive and which prevents it from being so could amount to an offense of child destruction. And we are having section 416 of Criminal Procedure Code. It provides that if a woman sentenced to death is found to be pregnant, the High Court shall order the execution of the sentence to be postponed and may, if it thinks fit, commute the sentence to imprisonment for life. So it has been laid that in a Canadian case, it was held that a child could succeed in tort after it was born on account of a deformity which was held to have been caused by a negligent prenatal injury to mother. Though in India there is no Indian case on this particular point, but it is always expected that a liberal view would be taken, a liberal approach would be taken on this particular line, and a child would be getting the right to sue. Now, in an African case, it was held that a child can succeed in tort after it is born on account of a deformity caused by pre-injury to his mother. In India as well as in England, under the law of tort, an infant cannot maintain an action for injuries sustained while on a Vantrasa mare. However, in England, damages can be recovered under, they are having this, the Fatal Accidents Act, 1846, okay. So under this particular act, that is Fatal Accidents Act of 1846, for the benefit of a posthumous child, these damages can be recovered. Damages can be recovered under this particular act for the benefit of a posthumous child. So in short, we can say it can be said, or we can say that an unborn person is endowed with legal personality for certain purposes. And in briefly, we can say unborn children are persons in the eye of law, property can be transferred in favor of unborn children. And unborn children become what we call contingent owners. The ownership, which means the ownership becomes vested in them after their birth. And a child, and ventra samere, or in other words, a child in the mother's womb, we can say is indisputable a legal person. So an injury to a child in the womb is an offense under the criminal law. The interest of the unborn in the womb are thus recognized and protected by the law. So they can sustain a legal personality, which is very important from the perspective of this chapter that we are discussing. Okay, they can have or they can sustain a legal personality. The unborn persons or unborn child. So the Hindu law of partition, okay, the Hindu law of partition requires a share to be allotted to a child in mother's womb along with the other living heirs. Okay, a Hindu law of partition requires a share to be allotted to a child in mother's womb along with the other living heirs. Okay, however, if the child does not take birth alive, if the child does not take birth alive, then what will happen? Then his share may be equally partitioned among the or between the surviving heirs. Okay. Now the proprietary rights of an unborn child are fully recognized by the Indian law. Under the Indian Penal Code, injury to a child in womb is a punishable offense. And as we know, sections 312, section 313, section 316 of Indian Penal Code, these sections are covering this particular aspect. So doing something which prevents or obstructs the safe delivery of a child taking birth alive has also been considered as an offense under the criminal law. Okay, like there is one famous judgment in this regard, R versus Sheffield 1919 case. Okay, so thus a child in mother's womb is entitled for legal protection under the criminal law. Okay. Now, the Canadian law also recognized the legal personality of an unborn child. Now, in the historic case of Montreal Tramways Company versus Leville, okay, so it's a 1933 decision. Okay, 1933 decision. So in this case, a claim was made by female infant against the tramway company for the deformity caused to her while in her mother's womb due to defendant's negligence. Now the court here in this case awarded damages, but the Irish court in Ireland had, however, denied damages to an infant child who claimed damages against a railway company for injuries inflicted upon her while she was in her mother's womb through a collision due to the defendant's negligence. And then it was held in this particular case, Walker versus Great Northern Railway Company. Walker versus Great Northern Railway Company, 1890 case. So in this case, the court ruled that the railway company owed no duty of care towards a person whose existence was unknown to them. But the Irish court did not specifically say that unborn child has no right to claim damage for personal harm. This is very important. The Irish court did not specifically say that unborn child has no right to claim damage for personal harm. So the recognition of legal personality of unborn person, okay, it is further confirmed by the provision in English law that a pregnant woman sentenced to death shall be respited as of right until she delivers the child. Later, such expectant mother were sentenced to life imprisonment instead of death under the Sentence of Death Expectant Mothers Act 1931. So Paton, as we know that he was a very famous jurist. patent does not recognize a child in the mother's womb as a legal person. Why? Because he is without rights according to him. According to him, he is without rights. So, in this view, legal personality is conferred on a child only after he is born. He is born alive and completely separated from his mother's womb. Okay. So, it is, however, submitted that this view is not tenable, as most legal systems of the world have incorporated provisions in their laws extending legal protection and safeguarding the contingent rights of an unborn child. Okay, now let us discuss about legal status of dead men. Okay, legal status of dead men. Now this is a very interesting topic, I tell you. Okay, so dead man is not a legal person. Okay, dead man is not a legal person. This is the first point to be discussed. As soon as a man dies, what happens? He ceases to have a legal personality. That person ceases to have a legal personality. Dead men do not remain as bearers of rights and duties. It is said that they have laid down their rights and duties with their death. Okay, so it is also known as actio personalis molita cum persona. That is, action dies with the death of a man. With death, personality comes to an end. A dead man ceases to have any legal right or any legal bound by any legal duty. And yet law to some extent recognizes and takes account of the desires or intentions of a deceased person. Law ensures a decent burial. It respects the wishes of the deceased regarding the disposal of his property, protects his reputation, and in some cases continues pending action instituted by or against a person who is now deceased. So let us come to the Indian position. As far as Indian position is concerned, when it comes to legal status of dead men, a dead man's body is concerned, as far as the dead man's body is concerned, criminal law secures a decent burial to all dead men. And we are having section 297 of the Indian Penal Code. It provides punishment for committing crime which amounts to indignity to any human corpse. Indignity to any human corpse. Section 297 of Indian Penal Code provides punishment for committing crime which amounts to indignity to any human corpse. So the criminal law provides that any imputation against a deceased person, if it harms the reputation of that person if living, and is intended to hurt the feeling of his family or other near relatives, shall be offense of defamation coming under section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. Now there is one landmark judgment. The Supreme Court in the case of Ashray Adhikar Abhiyan versus Union of India 2002 judgment has in this case it was held that even a homeless person, when found dead on the road, has a right of a decent burial of cremation or cremation as per his or her religious faith. And in English law as well, and as well as in Muslim law, the violation of a grave is a criminal offense. As regards reputation of a dead man, it is to some extent protected by criminal law. Under Roman law, any insult to the body of the deceased at the timing of funeral gave the deceased heir or the heir of the deceased a right to sue for the injury, as it is treated as insult to the heir. Under the law of France, the relative of the defamed deceased can successfully sue for damages if they can prove that some injury it suited from the defamation. Thus, it is not the rights. Thus, it is not the rights and hence the personality of the deceased that the law recognizes and protects, but it is the right and interest of living descendants that that it is protected. Okay. So, so far trust is concerned, English law provides the rule that permanent trust for the maintenance of a dead man's tomb is illegal and void, and property cannot be tied up for this purpose. This rule has been laid down in the in a famous case, Williams versus Williams. Okay, Williams versus Williams, 1881 decision. 1881 decision, where it was said that a corpse is the property of no one. It cannot be, the corpse cannot be, or the dead body cannot be disposed of by will or any other instrument. Okay, it cannot be disposed of by will or any other instrument. It was further held in this case that even temporary trusts are neither valid nor enforceable. Its fulfillment is lawful and not obligatory. Okay, and in Mathi Khan versus Veda Levi. Okay, it was held in Mathi Khan versus Veda Levi. It was held in this case that worship at the tomb of a person is charitable and religious purposes amongst Muslims. Hence, trust is possible. And then in Saraswati versus Raja Gopal, also known as Saraswati Ammal, and versus Raja Ammal, 1953 decision. So in this case, it was held that worship at the samadhi of a person, except in a community in which there is a widespread practice of raising tombs and worshipping thereat, is not a religious or charitable purpose according to Hindu law, and would not constitute a valid trust or endowment. Now, regarding the property of the dead man, the law carries out the wishes of the deceased. Regarding the property of the dead man, the law carries out the wishes of the deceased. Example, a will made by him regarding the disposal of his property. So this is done to protect the interest of those who are living and who would get the benefit under the will. So this is subject to the rule against perpetuity as well as law of this testamentary succession. Okay. So Selmond observes that generally speaking, the personality of a human being may be said to commence with his birth and ceases with his death. Okay, that is, according to him, personality exists from the cradle, that is from the birth to the death grave. Okay, so therefore dead men are no longer persons in the eyes of the law, according to Selmond. Okay, they cease to have rights since they cease to have any interest, nor do they have any duties. A dead man's corpse or dead body is not property in the eyes of law, that we have discussed. It cannot be disposed of by an instrument. Earlier, it was held that a person cannot, during his lifetime, make a will disposing of any part or organ of his body. Okay. But there has been a change in trend in the modern time, and today it is perfectly legal to donate eyes or any part of one's body for the progress of medical science and in the interest of humanity. Okay. Now, if you see that it is true that the dead persons are not recognized as legal persons, but the testamentary dispositions of the dead are carried out by law. A person can, by his will, make a valid trust for repairs and maintenance of the graveyard, because it amounts to a charitable or public trust, but he cannot, by a direction in his will provide that certain part of his estate shall be permanently used for the maintenance of his own grave or tomb. Such a direction would be void and unenforceable, being against the rule of perpetuity. Okay, so it was held in Draivya Sundaram versus Subramania, 1945. Draivya Sundaram versus Subramania, 1945 case. Okay, 1945 case. So the law of succession permits the desires of the dead man to regulate the action of his successors. I am repeating this again. The law of succession permits the desires of the dead man to regulate the action of his successors. Whatever is gifted by the deceased for a charitable purpose shall be enforceable by law, and the testament, that is the will, to that extent shall be valid. Okay, thank you.